and welcome to my craft room. I'm Leo from inkymemories.co.uk. I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator based in South Wales, and today on this Workshop Wednesday I'm going to be putting together a project using the Playing with Patterns suite. Now this suite can be found on page 100 to 102 in the annual catalogue. This is a really fun, bright suite full of lots of different patterns and textures on the DSP. It's really suitable for any occasion. There are no real sentiments in the stamp set. The idea is that you build your own sentiments using the dies. This means that it can suit anyone and, like I said, any occasion, and you can also personalise it. You can add someone's name using the dies, you can add how old they are if you really wanted to a card. There's lots of different options with this. And the project that I'm actually going to be putting together today isn't a card, we're actually going to be making a 3D project. And we're going to be using the mini paper pumpkin boxes that come with this suite. So here, the mini paper pumpkin box, and you get a pack of 10 of these, and this is part of the suite bundle. So if you order the single product code in the annual catalogue, you'll get everything in the suite, including these. Now these boxes are designed to be used as gift boxes. There's lots of different things you can do with them. As you can see, this side is glossy. If I hold that up, you can see it has this shiny surface, and this is actually food safe. So you could use this for gifting slices of cake, baking cookies. I'm sure you could fit some nice chunks of brownie into this box. There's a lot of different things you can do with this, and you could also use it, of course, for any small gifts, jewellery, pair of socks, anything you can think of. The other side then is just a matte white, and this can be decorated in a number of different ways. You can stamp onto it, you could use a sponge brayer to brayer ink and colour it into a different colour of your choosing. You could dilute some of our ink with some rubbing alcohol in one of the mister bottles and mist it to change the colour. So again, lots of different things that you can do with this. I'm going to put this to one side just for a moment while we start getting a lot of the pieces ready for our project. So I'm going to start with all of the cutting that we need to do first of all on the trimmer. I'm going to start with a piece of Night of Navy cardstock. I want to cut this 14 centimeters by 9.5. So I'm going to do the 9.5 first. So just make sure the cardstock is butted right up to the top of your trimmer so you get a nice straight edge. Pop the guide in place and pull the blade through. Spin this around then, and we'll take this to 14 centimeters on here. And same again. So that's the first piece of cutting done. The next thing I'm going to do then is start working on designer series paper. Now this is all coming from the Playing with Patterns stack. What I've done is I've looked through the stack, and there are lots and lots of different patterns and designs in here, multiple different colours, really fun bright designs, and there are a number of colours that actually coordinate with this suite. So we have Calypso Coral, Coastal Cabana, Crushed Curry, Night of Navy, Purple Posy and Whisper White, and these are all represented in various different ways throughout the paper. And what I've done is chosen 4 designs that work really nicely together. So I've got this sort of multicoloured spots, these really thick stripes, an ombre yellow, and these blue and yellow stripes. And I'm going to use in various different ways all of these papers. So first of all, I'm going to take the thick stripes piece, and I want to cut a piece of this that is 3.5 centimeters wide. Now this side of the trimmer does actually go up just over 3.5 centimeters, so I'm going to use this side. Just take the DSP to that line, make sure again it's butted right up against the top. Put the guide in place and run your blade straight through. So that's our first piece of paper. And then taking the spots, I want a piece this time that is 2 centimeters by 13 centimeters. So I'm first of all just going to cut the 2 centimeters just on here. And then I'll spin that around and trim it at 13, like so. Now with this large stripes piece, I'm actually going to use a die on this to cut this out. So I'm going to leave that as it is as a scrap. If you want to cut it down, if you're using a full sheet of the 6x6 paper, you can cut it down to the size of your die to make it slightly easier. And then with this gradient yellow piece, I want to cut 2 strips that are 3 centimeters wide by about 12 centimeters long, and I want them to go the full length of the gradients. So if I start again using the 3 centimeter line on this side of my trimmer. There's 1. And 2. And then I'm going to cut these down to 12 centimeters, and I'm going to cut off the paler end. Okay, if I pop the trimmer out of the way, that is all of the trimming that we need to do. So I'm going to move on now to some die cutting. I'm just going to do a quick bit of prep before we start that. First of all, I'm going to take some multi-purpose adhesive sheets. Just going to grab some of this from the packet. And with this, I'm going to use this with these 2 ombre strips because we're going to be die cutting some letters out of this, and this is going to make it much easier to stick the pieces together at the end. So first of all, I'm just going to roughly eyeball these on here and cut through the sheet with a pair of older scissors. So I always keep a pair of scissors in my craft room that are specifically for cutting gluier parts. Not my good ribbon scissors. I like to keep those nice and sharp. Okay. And then I'll cut this up the middle as well. So I've got 2 separate pieces. And then all you do is just peel off the first layer of the backing paper. And pop your cardstock or DSP down onto the adhesive, and repeat with the second piece. There's a couple of things you can do here. You can pop this cover sheet back over the top just to cover up the glue, or I actually find it easier just to trim around the piece of DSP that I have here, just to cut off the pieces of glue around the edge. But where the stuff is very sticky, you are likely to get glue everywhere during this step. And again, I'm using my old gluey scissors for doing this so that I'm not gumming up my good ribbon scissors. Okay, so now that we have our pieces of designer series paper prepared, it is time to start die cutting. So I'm just going to pull in my Big Shot. And this is probably one of the last times I will be using my Big Shot. The demonstrator pre-order for our new embossing and die cutting machine has just launched. Mine is on the way and I'm incredibly excited about receiving that. Not only because it has new plates which are going to replace my incredibly scarred and well-used plates, but also I just can't wait to see what Stampin' Up have managed to do with this. Now, I'm not going to be using my magnetic platform today. I'm going to switch this out for the regular platforms. Because the dies that I'm using are quite small, The magnetic platform is covered in a layer of small magnets lined up in the base, and the small dies can jump around a little bit, and I don't want them to move this time. I need to try and get them spaced out nice and evenly, so this is going to be better. So I'm going to pop on my pieces of designer series paper like so. And I'm going to grab the dies. These are the Playful Alphabet dies. This is part of the suite. And I'm going to start laying up my words across here. So I'm going to try and get happy and B-Day across here. So there are duplicates of a number of these letters, which does make this a little bit easier. So there's H first of all. Pop that one on. As you can see, when you take the dies off the backing, they do actually show, there's a sort of printed piece underneath that shows the letter, so you can make sure that when you're putting them away, you do have all of them back in place. You haven't left any behind. Right, P. And there is another P. And then a Y. And I'm making sure that I spell the word across the gradient of the paper. I want it to retain that ombre effect in the finished project as well. And then we need a B. And I just need a dot for the middle, so I'm actually going to use this colon here and just use one of the dots that it produces. And then a D. There should be another A on here somewhere. There it is. There's only one Y, so I'm going to leave a gap for the Y and pop the exclamation mark in slightly further over. Again, I'm trying to retain the ombre of the paper and in the die cut letters on the finished project. Pop my top plate on nice and carefully so I don't shimmy those out of the way too much, and then I'll run this through the Big Shot. Okay, now when I'm doing projects like this where I am die cutting, I like to use a small tray or tub. This one is from IKEA. Number one, just to pop all my dies back into so I make sure I don't lose them by accident. But also to keep all of my die cut pieces while I am putting everything together. So I'm going to keep hold of the Y. We're going to use that again in a minute. And I'm just going to pop all of these pieces off my plates. Back in the piece of paper that we've been cutting the B-Day word out of, pop the Y back on in its right place in that ombre and run it back through. And the last piece of die cutting that we're going to be doing is actually to cut a sort of sentiment mat, and we're going to be using the rectangle stitched framelits for this. And the one that we're going to be using is the third one in on the sort of smaller side. This actually measures 5 by 8 centimeters if you're unsure which one that is. I'm going to die cut out a piece from this stripy paper with the Night of Navy and crushed curry stripes. And again, I'll just pop that through the Big Shot. And there's our finished die cut piece, ready to use. Okay, that's all of the die cutting that we need for this project, so I shall go ahead and put this back down. And next up, I'm going to do a little bit of stamping. There's not a lot of stamping in this project. It is predominantly sort of focusing on all of the designer series paper. So I'm going to bring in the Pattern Play stamp set. I'm going to be using the Starburst sort of stamp, this one here. And as you can see, these have stained already. I've been using these quite a lot over the past few days. Lots of different projects going on. And anytime you use sort of red or pink ink, or in this case Night of Navy ink, it does leave behind some red pigment on your stamp. It doesn't harm the stamp in any way. It certainly won't affect how well it stamps. It doesn't leave a residue or anything like that. You can see it's not leaving red on my grid paper there. It doesn't hurt the stamp. It is just something that happens when you are using those colours of ink. So I'm going to bring in the Night of Navy matte that I cut earlier and some Night of Navy ink. I'm going to stamp using this sort of starburst type stamp, just some across sort of in a diagonal pattern across here. Any which way you want, sort of no hard or fast rules to this. It's just to add a little bit of texture to the background of our cardstock. And with this, I'm just doing light taps on the ink pad with the stamp. Don't need to press too hard. And I think that should do. It's a fairly subtle, because we're doing tone on tone, we're doing Night of Navy ink on Night of Navy cardstock. So it is just a very subtle background pattern on there. And I'm also going to do some stamping on the actual box itself. And when you look at the box, I'm just going to move that so I don't end up sticking my box in it. I'm very good at getting ink onto places that they shouldn't go. When you're looking at the box, you have sort of the base. So this is where all of the square edges are. That makes the base of the box. And this is your lid. So this is where the rounded tabs are. And what we're going to do is stamp. If you imagine this piece of cardstock is going to sit on the top here. And we want to carry on these stamps over this edge and this front edge here. So again, just going to add a few stamps over this corner. And if you don't worry too much if it does go over the edges of here. This tab actually gets hidden inside the box when it gets folded up. And the same with these tabs at the front as well. Okay, I think that should do. And that is all of the stamping that we're going to be doing on this project. And now it is time just to assemble everything. So I'm going to start by assembling the box itself. These go together incredibly easily. First of all, I'm just going to pop out these square pieces down here. And there's 2 of those on each side. And then I'm going to flip the box over and I'm going to fold on all of the score lines. So first of all, going all the way up. And then folding all of the tabs along the edges. Just like that. And then we'll start with one side. So these 2 pieces come up together and it can be easier just to bend the lid back slightly while you're doing this. So these 2 pieces come up and then this tucks over the top of them. And then the tabs go into those slits into the bottom. So they come through at the bottom of here and then just push the sides in to square it up and repeat that on the other side. Just like so. And that's the base of the box. And then the lid, you just fold in those two side tabs, and then these rounded tabs go into the slits on the front, just in the same way that sort of a traditional pizza box would go together. And that is how the box is formed. So you can see we have some stamps just on this front corner and on this back corner. So I'm going to add this navy blue mat onto the top, and I'm going to do this with liquid glue. So just a thin bead of glue all the way around the edge of here, and then a bit across the middle. Make sure that you have your stamping in the top right and bottom left corner of your mat before you put it into place. Line it up on the top of the box. Because this is liquid glue, you've got a few seconds to sort of wiggle it around if it's not quite lined up correctly or where you want it to go. Okay, that's that. I'm just going to pop that to one side, and I'm going to start working now on building our sentiment pieces. So here is the mat for the sentiment, and then I've got here all of the letters that I die cut earlier. And because we use the adhesive sheets with this, all the adhesive is already on the back, makes this incredibly easy to put together. You don't have to worry about squeezing liquid glue onto these tiny little pieces. Okay. And what I would recommend with this is, first of all, lay out your letters so you know roughly where you're going to want them to go before you start sticking them down. This also means that you can double check that you have the right letters for your ombre as well. So once you have your pieces all lined up, it's time to start sticking them into place. And this is going to be nice and easy because we use those adhesive sheets. I'm just taking the take your pick tool and using the pointed poking end on here. I'm just going to use this to pry up the backing sheet on the backs of the letters to reveal the adhesive underneath, and then just stick them into place. I'm just going to repeat that for all of the other letters. Okay, and there's our letters all in place on our sentiment. So now it's time to start building the rest of the box. So the next thing that I'm going to pop on is actually the striped piece of designer series paper that we have here. And I'm going to stick this right across the middle of the box. And you'll notice that this is slightly longer than the piece of cardstock. I wanted to make sure that I could trim this evenly from both ends so that both colours still had a good representation on here. And the way that I'm going to do that is actually to open the box itself, just like so, and then glue it into place using liquid glue. So just a thin bit of glue all the way along the back of the design series paper. Pop this into place where you want it to go on the box, and then just smooth it into place. Once that is in place, then just flip the box over and using your gluey scissors just trim the designer series paper right along the edge of the box, just like that. And then repeat that on the other side. And that way the paper has an even part taken from both of the colours on either end. Okay, popping the box back closed. The next thing I'm going to do is actually pop on some ribbon. So this is going to help keep your box closed when you gift the box. It also adds obviously a nice bit of detail. And I'm using the Coastal Cabana ribbon that comes in the combo pack with the suite. So these are the other two ribbons that come with the suite. So if I just move some of these things out of the way, I'm going to take my ribbon and wrap it right across the middle and then all the way under the box. Making sure I've got a good piece on this edge. And I want to tie a bow towards this side. Once you've got your bow sort of loosely tied, you can shimmy with the ends. Just going to take my good scissors, the non-gluey ones, and trim the edge. And I'm always going to trim ribbon at an angle. This helps to stop it fraying on you. It helps keep the edges nice and neat, and also looks a bit prettier on your finished project as well. So I'm just going to fiddle with this until I'm happy with the loops and the ends, and then trim this ever so slightly. Okay, and then in order to open and close the box, you simply untie this and you can fill the box and then retie the ribbon, but it doesn't get in the way of any of the other decoration that we're putting onto the top. The next piece I'm going to work on then is the spotty piece that I have here. I'm going to use my good scissors for this, and from one end I'm just going to snip up the centre of the ribbon, just about a centimetre or so, sorry, DSP, not ribbon, just about a centimetre from the edge up the centre, and then from the corner I'm going to snip from that corner to the end of the piece I've just cut. And repeat that on the other side. And that's a nice simple way to cut a banner end in a piece of paper or cardstock without having to use a punch or anything. And I'm going to adhere this to the box so that it comes slightly off the edge and it sits under that ribbon. And I'm going to use liquid glue to stick that on. So again, as always with the liquid glue, just a small bead of the glue up the centre of the designer series paper, and then pop it into place. You've got those few seconds to shimmy it around to make sure that it's in a position that you're happy with. And I'm happy with that. Okay, the last piece then that we need to put on is our sentiment piece, and this one I'm going to stick on with dimensionals. So I'm just going to grab a sheet of those. And I'm going to use 5 dimensionals across the back of here, so 1 in each corner, slightly pulled away from the edge, just so there's no chance of it peeking out from under the edge of your sentiment strip, and then 1 in the middle that will help support it and keep it nice and stable on the top of your gift box. Take the backs off those dimensionals to reveal the adhesive underneath. Just pull the ribbon out of the way slightly while you layer this in. And I'm going to pull this down so that I can see this designer series paper across the top of the sentiment. Just like that. And then firmly push all of those dimensionals over the top. And the last thing I'm going to pop on this then are some of the Playing with Patterns resin dots. As you can see, I've used quite a few of these already. I absolutely love these. They come in 3 colours, so Coastal Cabana, Crushed Curry and Purple Posy, and there are 4 different sizes of each. I'm just going to pop a couple over the box. So I'm going to use the Coastal Cabana colours for this. So I'll start with one of the largest ones, and I'm going to pop it up here where we did all of that stamping. And then I'm going to add another couple down on this side. So one on the designer series paper just here. And another one just underneath the edge of the sentiment. Yeah, just about there. I hope you've enjoyed this project. Thank you again for joining me in my craft room today. If you have enjoyed this, I would be really appreciative if you would give this video a like and perhaps consider subscribing to my channel, and then you will see any new videos that I post. We post a video every Saturday with a simple project, alternating Wednesdays with a more complex project like this, and then we have some tips and other things in between. If you have any questions about the project itself, the products that I've used today, or Stampin' Up, please do pop those in the comments box below and I'll be happy to help you out. If you have any comments or if you just wanted to let me know that you like the project, or you have any ideas of other things that you'd like to see me do, again, pop those in the comments box and I'll be happy to have a look into that with you. All of the products that I've used today can be purchased directly through my Stampin' Up store, and there'll be a link to that in the description box below for you. If you're based in the UK and you don't currently have a Stampin' Up demonstrator, there's another link in the description box to the web form directly on my website where you can request a copy of all of our current catalogues, and I'll be happy to get those out into the post to you. Thank you again for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.